beautiful day. Kind of overcast, isn't it? And cloudy. I have to write that in our notebook. We're going on the farm. We're going live from Over the Fence Urban Farm for the Clintonville Farmers Market Kids Garden Club. So we're going to get started in just a minute. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Jody, and this is my daughter, Cora. And we live here on the farm, and which is in Clintonville. So I know a lot of you are in Columbus and might know where that is. We are just off of High Street, near Henderson Road. So not the place you'd normally think of finding a farm, but it suits us. And we've been hosting the Kids Garden Club now for, this is our 4th year. So this year is a little different than other years, but say it again. All right, so Cora was checking the temperature on our thermometer, which is something we do when we start our garden club, and it looks to me like 70, so the big fat line between the 60 and the 80 over here is 70, right? And then each line is each of the little lines is 2 degrees. So it's about 73 this morning. So Cora's gonna open up our notebook. Let's put that down for a minute and we'll come back here and get our notebook. It's our Kids Garden Club notebook, where we keep all our notes about Kids Garden Club. So we're going to open it up, and Cora's going to jot down the temperature on our temperature chart. So Cora, you want to come on over? So last week when we met, it was 66 degrees and cloudy, and today it's 73 degrees, so she's going to go to 70 and then go a little bit above that and go over to August 11th and make a dot. So it's almost 10 degrees warmer than last week. And what did we say about the weather in the sky? The conditions today are cloudy. So she's going to go ahead and keep track of our conditions, because it's a good thing when you're a farmer or a gardener to keep track of your weather conditions so you know how things have been when you look from one season to the next, especially to see how things are growing. So Farmer Jody's having a crazy hair day today, so bear with us. Fortunately, having a good haircut is not essential to being a good farmer, so that matches with our COVIDian times. So the first thing we're going to do today actually is we're going to check in on some things we started last week. So if you were with us, that's awesome, and I hope to hear about how things are going. You can send us some messages. You can send us messages in the chat. You can send us emails. But last week we talked about seeds, and we looked at a lot of different kinds of seeds that people got in their seed packet. And on the back of the information, there is a journal for keeping track of your seeds. So we're going to check on the seeds that we planted after Garden Club last week. And we're going to go over one thing that I failed to mention that's really important, which is labeling your seeds. So I got a pen out today, a marker, and I'm going to show you my trick. Cora, can you actually hold the phone for 1 second for me? We're not going to do that today, maybe next week. So we're going to take, we didn't talk about labeling your seeds, and it's important if you were going to document which seeds came up. It's important to know which seeds you planted, right? So we didn't even talk about that. So just stay focused on here for 1 second. So you can buy all kinds of fancy stakes to label your plants. But one trick that I learned from my friend, friendly farmer Diane, is that you can take a yogurt container like this. You could take a big one, you could take a small one. And it's a little hard sometimes to get through this top part. A little bit heavier duty scissors. So you just cut kind of through the top. Oh wow, that was smooth. And then you cut around the bottom. cut off this top part that we had such a hard time getting through.
Yeah, I gotta put the leaves through.
Go all the way around. We're going to stop here for now. And you have a piece of plastic canvas, kind of. So I had a piece over here that I took out earlier, and just so that it makes it easier for you to see how I cut it, I drew some lines on here. And you can see I cut it so that I make like wedges out of the plastic. And then you get a stake like this, and you can put the pointy part down in the ground, and you have a nice fat part to write on. So we're going to go ahead. Do you remember some of the things we planted last week, Cora?
I know we planted some radish.
Radish. We're going to write radish on one.
Radish. Sunflower. You wrote sunflower. You wrote sunflower.
Well, my handwriting's not always so
and then
great. Lettuce. That was the whole packet, yeah. Peas. We planted some peas.
I don't know.
Onions. We planted scallions. I don't have any of those coming up yet on my chart. Scallions, let's see, I think I wrote some stuff down. Zucchini, that's right, and we had some zucchini.
One zucchini.
Alright, so let's go and look at what we've got. So Cora's gonna show the way to where we planted our seeds from the garden club packet from last week. And if you didn't get a garden club packet, do you have some seeds around? The lesson really is that it's not too late to plant some things in your garden. So we took this area where there had been some stuff growing, but there isn't anymore, and we planted some things. So here's a couple of things coming up. Cora, can you get in here and check these out? And then you can take the stakes. So this one is the sunflower, and this one is a pea. So I'll try to do a little bit of a close-up so that if you also planted your seeds and didn't. So here is a sunflower, and here the pea has, let's put it a little farther away and give it some room to breathe. It has you can see like the next shoot coming out of where these first true leaves are. And I can see that something was nibbling on it already. We're going to talk today about insects. Hi Ezra, it's good to have you with us today, and I'm so excited to hear about your bean plants. Actually, you know what I can see is Cora and I went ahead and threw some of our bean plants in the ground, and here's one, here's two that we put outside. So I didn't even make a label for those, but those are those kidney beans. Here's another sunflower. But as long as you have one of your plants, and here's another pea, as long as you have one of your plants labeled, it should help you know where things are. Let's see, we got some lettuce coming up. Here's some itty bitty little lettuces. So we'll put our lettuce label over here. And there are some radishes. Cora, can you find any radishes? That's cilantro. Let's see. Oh, they're closer to me. No wonder you couldn't see them. Here are the radishes coming up. Oh, here's something cool I can show you guys while we're over here. So here's one of those beans. So if you planted the beans in your house, you might have gotten to see this. But here is the cotyledon, right? The parts of the fleshy parts of the bean coming out of the ground and feeding this plant, and you can see it starting to unfurl under the soil. It's starting to poke its head out of the ground. So cool. I love to watch things grow like that. So we have two labels left, scallions, and I don't see any of those yet. Those are going to look like curly little like black worms coming out of the ground. Very thin, but Cora's right. These are some older scallions that have been in the ground all since the winter time, I think, actually. And what was it else? The zucchini, that one zucchini seed that you guys got. So we don't see those yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put these labels here to remind myself to look for those. I have some, so I'll have to update my chart. So today is August 11th, and I had written that we saw radish germinated and lettuce germinated and sunflower. We'll have to add kidney beans. Whoops. Oh no. Are we still here with you guys? Because it keeps telling me that the connection's cutting out. That's a real pain. That happened to us last week too. Okay. Thanks, Loretta. I'm glad you like that idea. Yeah, it's a really cool idea. So, okay. And thanks, Cormac, for telling us also that you're still here with us. Thank goodness. Okay. So now that we checked in on what we did last week, I'm hoping that you guys are all having a good time with your seeds at home. I know Ezra sent me a picture of his mom actually sent me a picture of his bean plant today. And you know, we could try, Ezra, if you want, if your plant is near you, we can try that thing where we're supposed to be able to have you be able to show your face. Do you want to try that? I'm not exactly sure what you'd have to click, but if you want to try to show everybody your bean plant. While Ezra's trying to work that out, I'm just going to tell you guys real quick what I told his mom, Emily. Today is a really great day because it's pretty cool out, right? We said it was 73 degrees and cloudy, so it's a pretty good day. If you did get your bean plants inside, germinated, and you want to try to move them outside, last week we talked about hardening plants off. So that's the process where you have to let the plants get used to fresh air because they've been in your house with different kind of air, and they need to get used to the sunshine. And so you have to do that gradually, little bits at a time, so they don't get a sunburn and they don't die. So Ezra, see if you see a picture in your controls. Is there like a picture of a person's body and then like a person's body in a square? Because it's not, I can't do it. It says I could give him permission to be seen, but, well, don't worry about it too much. We'll have to do a test run like another time while we're not in class and see how it works. But Facebook Live has this new feature where apparently you can show other people's faces. All right, so we are going to actually be leaving the garden this morning for the bulk of our lesson today, which is called Dandelion Detectives. So I don't know if you guys, how many of you who are watching now were able to pick up the packet at the farmer's market, but if you didn't and you want to participate, it'll be absolutely fine because we're going to show you a website. Cora wants to show you something as soon as I'm finished with my sentence. That's really cool. So I'm going to show you a website, and it actually has the instructions of how you can build your own kit that is the same as what I gave out at the market. And some of the supplies I actually still have some extras of, so I'll go ahead and tell you that, and most of them you can just find at home. So Cora wanted to show you this giant bumblebee that's hanging out on our passion flowers. It's not moving. Probably resting since it's shady out right now, since it's so cloudy. Do you want to see if it's still alive? Let's see. There's an ant climbing near it. Do you think the ant and the bumblebee are friends? I don't know. Hey Ezra, what do you think about this? I'm petting the bumblebee. One of the questions you guys are going to ask. Yeah, I think I'll stop now. But those passion flowers are really cool. Right now, because it's shady and it's the morning, they're closed up. But as the day starts, we'll even see if we can remember at the end of our class today, if we can come back and see them opened up because they're really, really beautiful. So we're going to leave the farm this morning for a bit. I know you're not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore either, but I don't think I've ever touched one like that before. All right, we're going to come out on our driveway and we're going to get the rest of our supplies because today we are all going to become dandelion detectives. And for this exercise, we're going to need some grass or turf, or at least a yard. So if you picked up your supplies at the market, you got this packet that's called Kids Garden Club Weeds. And inside of it would have been a string. I'm going to show you how to use it. And a little piece of ribbon. And 4 popsicle sticks. Some of them might have been colored, some of them might have been plain. A piece of yellow paper and a round yellow sponge. So with these, we're going to dandelion. But we're going to do something else, and we're going to use parts of it for the dandelion and parts of it for this other experiment. So we're going to carry this stuff all with us into the yard. And Cora, we're going to need to find a stick, because I forgot. Actually, we can use that tent pole thing over there. All right, so I don't know if you guys have noticed when you go out into the world, but there's a whole lot of grass around, isn't there? Cora, can you grab the measuring cup to start? Yeah. So a lot of people have grass in their yards. I'm going to show you the view from the front of our house. So when we look around, there's grass in the front yard here at Grandma Joyce's house, which is next to our house. If you look down the block, there's grass at our neighbor's house over there. There's grass in the front yard at that house, and the next house. Our house, which is over here, we've been getting rid of the grass in the front of our yard. But what we're going to do today, the video jumping around, I'm sorry, is we're going to look a little more closely at the grass here. And as you can see, and I'm taking a walk the other day with a friend, also known as Ed's mom, and I was showing her what we were going to do today. I said, just look around while we're walking the dog, and look at how what you think is grass, in a lot of cases, is a lot more than just grass. So, is it better now, Ezra, the connection, or is it still gotten better now they stopped moving around? So you got the clover. Which one's the clover? White flowers. Yep. Be ideal for the experiment, but the connection will be better. So give us a second to relocate, and you keep telling us if you can hear us better. No audio at all? You can't hear me at all? Can you hear me better now? Let's do a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I hear you now. Okay, great. Well, we're going to go in Grandma Joyce's backyard, which doesn't have as many plants that are not grass, but we're going to use it as an example. Okay, so history of grass in America, or the United States of America, North America, is such. A long time ago, when the Native Americans lived on this land, peace and harmony and liberty and freedom, the Adena mound builders, the Wyandot, the Hopewell people, Columbus looked a lot more like woods and prairies than, you know, big buildings and roads and grass lawns. But when colonists came here and eventually started building up cities, not just homesteads, but cities and estates, they wanted their places to look a lot more like the wealthy Europeans that they were actually escaping. But as they started to get power, they wanted to look like they had the same power as those people and live in fancy places with big yards and formal gardens. So actually our third president, Thomas Jefferson, was a real big proponent of grass. And he helped convince people. He built a home in Virginia called Monticello, which you can visit when it's not the COVID times. And you can see his gardens and his lawns and his beautiful estate. But it's beautiful in a certain way, right? So grass was considered to be like a living carpet. So this lawn that we're sitting in right now actually is a pretty nice living carpet. It's nice and soft and fluffy, and it's very even. You think of what? Oh yeah, moss would be a really nice living carpet. But even just like if you've ever been to a rug store or carpet store, there's carpets that have a thicker or a higher or a lower, I don't remember what the technical carpeting term is, but you can have carpets that are very short and carpets that are thicker. So this is a pretty thick carpet that we're sitting in right now. And people started to really like these living carpets, and they wanted them all over the place. And it turns out that scientists have found that grass is not a terrible ground cover. It helps us to hold carbon, draw carbon out of the atmosphere, which we know is contributing to global warming and climate change. So the soil and the grass roots do store some carbon, like prairies and woods and other plants do. And they help keep the soil in place. So if you've ever heard of something called the Dust Bowl, that was a time when farmers were farming all the same kind of crop across the Midwest. And they had cleared the prairies and cleared all of the natural vegetation, and they started growing just one kind of wheat or one kind of corn. And these big storms came, and the storms just carried the soil away because there weren't deep roots anymore holding the soil in place. So that led to a lot of erosion. So grass does, because it stays from season to season, it's a perennial, it holds the soil in place, so that's good. But the problem is that not all lawns are the same. And after World War II, some scientists and weapons developers actually wanted to use and make money off of different kinds of synthetic chemicals that they had made to poison people as weapons against people, and they wanted to keep making money off of these inventions they made, and so they turned them into fertilizers that could feed grass and herbicides that could kill things that weren't grass, and insecticides which kill bugs, and they started selling them, and people started buying them, and everybody thought their lawn should just be pure grass. So they started pouring more and more of these poisons into their yards, and they can cause a lot of problems. So a lawn that's treated with those kinds of synthetic fertilizers and herbicides is not such a great kind of lawn to have. So if you were with us for Earth Day, hopefully you guys can hear me over the air conditioning unit that just turned on. If you were with us in April for Earth Day, or you want to go back on our YouTube channel and watch that episode, we talked a little bit about the founding of Earth Day, and a scientist and writer named Rachel Carson, who talked about something called Silent Spring. And Silent Spring, she wrote a book called Silent Spring. Thanks, Flo. So that idea of Silent Spring and the chemicals that people were using on their lawns now are really very much what the scientists doing the dandelion detective work are interested in learning about people's opinions about those things and helping young people like you to think differently about lawns. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to teach you about this project. And again, so this is a project, Dandelion Detectives is a project out of a research lab at Ohio State that was specifically designed for kids. So these scientists need your help to do their research. And the great thing about it is, by doing this research, you're going to be helping the scientists learn about how they can help fight climate change, and they can encourage people to do things in their own backyards that can help us to help the planet. So if there are any Greta Thunberg fans out there, this is something that you can do to help Greta and to work with Greta to try to make the world a better place without even having to leave your home. So let's get to it. All right, so let's see what we've got again in our packet here. So the first thing we're going to do, and I think I might have lost some of my sticks on our walk up this way, so we're going to do our best. So the first thing we're going to do is, well, the first thing you're going to do, Cora, can you bring your iPad over here? Is you're going to be, in your packet it talks about how you're going to go to this website, and you can just Google Dandelion Detectives, and it'll take you to the website for Dandelion Detectives from Ohio State. And then you're going to click on Headquarters. And there's a little, you're going to then click on Become a Dandelion Detective. You don't have to do it right now, but you're going to click on there and it's going to give you a badge number. And if you have the packet from the farmer's market, there's a spot here where you can put your Dandelion Detective badge number. So just like a real detective, you're going to have a badge number. And you're going to use that to help give your data to the scientists at Ohio State. The other thing that you need from this website is you're going to click on, this is where if you didn't get the kit from the market, you can click on DIY kits and it'll tell you how to make your own. Cora's having trouble holding her thing straight. It'll tell you how to make your own toolkit. So it gives you all the materials, and then down here there's some information like an insect guide and a weed identification guide. So let's click on the weed identification guide. All right, so it has some common weeds from the Midwest. So there's that white clover Cora saw in the front yard. That's zoomed in too far, so it's not clear. And then the plantain that I was starting to show you guys. So we're going to set up the experiment so that you can see how it's done. We're going to try to. There's just two of us. And so Cora, can you put that bit down for a second and take this? This is your flagging ribbon. So what the scientists want you to do is take this ribbon and tie it around a pen or a pencil, or why don't you just take, yeah, go ahead, tie it around here. And tie that around there. Doesn't have to be tight. It just has to be so that it'll help you see it when we throw this over your shoulder into the grass. All right, so turn toward me and then throw it over your shoulder there. And let's see where it landed. Up, all the way over there. Okay. So it's all the way over here. And that's going to be the center of our testing area. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to grab our string and our popsicle sticks. And it's okay, because if you didn't get the popsicle sticks, you can just take a stick. So we need 4 for 4 corners of a square. All right, so we're going to come on over here and we're going to make a square around here. Now this is where it's going to get tricky because we only have a couple hands. So if you got a string from me, it has a knot, and that's going to be 1 corner. And across from the knot, Cora, can you pull that straight? Across from the knot, you're going to see a black mark on the string. That's another corner. And then in the middle, you're going to see some more black marks. So these black marks and the knot are your 4 corners. So we're going to try to set this up with, we're going to try to set this up with our flagging thing. Well, it's okay. We're going to set this up so that our flagging ribbon is in the center of our square. And just like Cora's doing, you can just use your popsicle stick or your stick or whatever kind of stake you have to get your corner held in place. So we went end to end, that seemed to work, with our flagging ribbon in the middle, close to our black lines. Yeah, so Cora said it fell, it came off, so we have to Well, let's, wait, it's going, okay. That's fine. So we're just going to stretch it out so it's a square. Our flagging ribbon is now not in it, but we're going to just, it was close enough that we're going to, they just want you to have what's called a random sample. So scientists use either like a very purposeful sample where they test specific people or specific places that meet certain criteria they want to study, or they look for a random sample and they just say, we're going to then compare the data from all these random samples and see what we can learn. So this is our random sample. And it just so happens, as I said, that this part of Grandma Joyce's lawn is pretty much just grass. And that is because before Grandma Joyce lived here, the woman who lived here before actually had a lawn service come, and they would spray all kinds of nasty things on the lawn. But when we got this house, we decided we didn't want to do that because we were growing fruits and vegetables as close to organic as we could, and we didn't want to put the poisons into the ground. For a little while, we had an organic lawn company that comes, and they were using, I think, like chicken manure and fish emulsions and very similar kinds of fertilizers to what I use on the farm to grow vegetables organically. But we're not doing that either anymore. So now the yard is being opened up to other things. So let's just see for a minute, even though we don't see any weeds in this space, let's see if we can find some elsewhere, just so that we can use our identification guide for a minute. Hey Cora, can you get your identification guide out? And we're just gonna see if we can find anything, just so that you would know if you saw it in your yard. Here's one. This is called sedge. So it has on the iPad that you've downloaded. So this has a pretty long leaf, and then these kinds of flowers that you might have seen before. So I don't know if that one's on their guide or not. Let's see. Nope, that one's not on their guide. But they have, let's see, daisies. Bindweed I know we have in the other yard. Oh, buckthorn. Oh, yeah, that does look like narrow leaf plantain. It's different. I know plantain to look different than that. Let's see what else we can find. Here's another weed, quote unquote weed, because all these plants actually have lots of great purposes. This is a violet. Got chopped by the lawnmower. And this one everybody knows, with this sawtoothed leaf. If it had a flower on it, you would know it for sure. That's right. What is it, Cora?
A dandelion.
A dandelion, that's right. So what you're going to do in your notes for the scientist is you're going to jot down the date, your address, the temperature, and tell them whether it was a sunny day or a cloudy day that you did your weed experiment. And then you're going to document what you find. And again, if you didn't get this kit from the farmer's market, you can download it from the DIY kit page. So you're going to do your weed survey. Since I'm an art teacher turned farmer, I always like to give people a chance to draw things. So I put in my version of the Dandelion Detective Activity Guide, I put a box that gives you a chance to draw your favorite weed. And hopefully, it does sound kind of funny, right? Mm-hmm. Sounds crazy to have a favorite weed. Why does that sound crazy? That's right. People do normally think of weeds as bad, but that's just because they're plants that they're aliens, yeah, like they don't want them around. But weeds are, that's why I keep saying quote unquote weeds, because we just think of them as weeds in this experiment because they're growing where most people want grass to be. It's true, the real weed is grass. Profound. On the mouth of babes. So you're going to go ahead and do actually 3 rounds of this experiment. So you'll have 3 samples that you take with your square, and the scientists want you to say which kind of weed you found, and then the number of flowers that you saw. So up front, you'll remember we saw some clover flowers, so we would count them. We're getting a little short on our time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to the second part of the experiment. And you guys can always contact me with questions. There's also the dandelion detective scientists are happy to answer questions, so they have an email on their website that you can use. So, yeah. So the next part of the experiment is to see what kind of insects are enjoying the weeds and flowers in your yard. So that's the thing. One of the things that the scientists want to learn more about is how do sustainable turfs... Oh, was there a grasshopper? Yeah. Why don't you start looking through the insect identification guide, Cora, and see if you can start familiarizing yourself with what's there, and in a minute I'll ask you if anything seems familiar to you. So the second part of the experiment is that they want to see what are the insects that benefit from having these things around to munch on that are not grass. So we know that some animals and insects like to eat grass. So for example, Cora and I are reading a book about rabbits now called Watership Down. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but in Watership Down, some of the rabbits like to eat grass. But a lot of bugs and insects and animals don't really like to eat grass. They want other things. So in this second part of the experiment, you are going to make a dandelion. Well, it's called an observation dandelion. It's not a real dandelion. And you're going to see what insects come to visit your dandelion. So what you need to make the dandelion is the yellow sponge that was in your packet, a jar that you have to find in your house. So I happen to have these wide mouth mason jars, fit really well, but you basically want a jar. You can wash out a jar from some jam or some pasta sauce or something. You want a jar that the sponge is going to fit into the bottom of. And it's a little bit loose now, but what happens to sponges when they get wet? They get bigger, that's right. So you got your jar and you've got your sponge in it. And then we made in advance this simple syrup, which is made by just mixing equal parts boiling water and sugar. So you can see actually that this sugar made it turned very brown in the water. So the recipe that they give you and that I gave in the packet is 1 cup and 1 cup, which makes a lot more than you need. So if you want to conserve sugar, because I do not believe in wasting things at all, you can probably make just even 1/4 of a cup and 1/4 of a cup. But we found our old hummingbird feeder, and we're going to fill up our hummingbird feeder with the rest of the simple syrup. So we hadn't gotten that out yet. So this is a good inspiration. So we're going to get this wet, and just enough, well, it wasn't even 1/4 of a cup, enough to get the sponge wet, and for there to be enough that we're going to leave this out in the sunshine for about 6 hours. So we want to make sure that it stays moist and gives the bugs that visit something exciting to drink. So you want the sponge to be moist, but you don't want it to be like wet. So I've never done this before, but I'm going to assume that with the sponge wet, but not dripping. Okay, Cora, I need you to hold this for me a second. I know I asked you to do your but we're going to make a funnel with there's a yellow piece of, half a sheet of yellow construction paper in your packet. And we're going to make a funnel. I forgot to bring out some tape, but you want to put a little piece of tape here so that your funnel stays a funnel. And then you're going to place it in your jar, resting right on top of your sponge. So you can see my funnel is turning into a disaster because I don't have a piece of tape. So hopefully you guys will be able to find a little piece of tape or something sticky to keep this closed.
Like fly guts.
Yeah. Now today is actually not a great day for this experiment because it's so cloudy out. And so the scientists said that this is a good experiment to do on a sunny day. You're going to put your observation dandelion out in the yard, in the same yard where you did your weed experiment. And that doesn't have to be in your backyard. If you don't have any grass in your backyard, you can go to a park in your neighborhood or to a schoolyard or any place you can find a patch of turf. And so then you're going to set out your dandelion for 6 hours and then go back and see what insects have come to visit. So Cora, do you recognize any of the insects in the guide? If you saw them, would you recognize them? Bumblebees, okay. You showed me an earwig earlier too. An earwig you would recognize. Ants, did they have any ants?
I don't see
Oh, go back to that red and black one that you saw a second ago. This one more. Yep, right here. This one is one that if you've never seen it before, it can be kind of scary the first time you see it, but it's called a milkweed bug. And a few weeks ago, the milkweed plants that we think of as the food for the monarchs were covered in these milkweed bugs. But it turns out they're not bad for the milkweed. But oh, mosquitoes are there too. Yeah. So you guys can spend some time looking at this guide and getting to know some of these insects. And then after 6 hours, you're going to go back and there's a different observation chart to fill out. And you're going to write down the insects that you see and the number of each kind of insect. And then when you're finished collecting all your data, you're going to head back to headquarters on the Dandelion Detective website, and you're going to report all of your findings to headquarters. And then the scientists are going to, after the summer is over, and the weather gets cold and the insects all go to sleep for the winter, the scientists are going to come, they're going to get together and they're going to look at all of the research, all of the data that you sent to them. Real data, real scientists. It's really important and really helpful what you're doing here. So we are running really short on time, so I'm not sure we have time for a story today. I brought a really short one that I can read if anybody wants to stick around and listen. I have to walk back over to get my book. But yeah, I can bring it back over there. So it was hard for me to find a book about weeds. I think if I had thought more about it, I could have found one about insects. But you know, I'm still getting used to the fact that I can't just go over to the library and take things off of the shelf. So while I'm over here getting our book, I'm also going to grab our hummingbird feeder, because this was my suggestion for if you have simple syrup left after your observation dandelion. If you have one of these, you can put it out to feed the hummingbirds. So we're going to pour our stuff in when we're finished with our time with you. Okay, so my story for today is from this book, Fairy Tale Comics, which is really fun, and there's a companion fairy tale nursery rhymes. So if you have never seen these, they have them for sale at the Laughing Ogre usually. They have them at the library. Now, Rapunzel is not a story people would usually think of as a garden story. But the truth is that Rapunzel starts in the garden. So we're going to read this. And it turns out, actually, Cora's going to be excited about this. I'm noticing something like this. Oh, yes. First of all, Cora's noticing that Rapunzel is a Brothers Grimm story. And if you're a fan of fairy tales, there's a great podcast called Grim, Grimmer, Grimmest.
I prefer it on Pinnacle.
Okay. And you can find it, and it's a great, this guy does a great job of retelling Grimm fairy tales. But Rapunzel, this version of it is illustrated and retold by Raina Telgemeier, who some of you will know because she wrote the book Smile and Guts and Sisters. So she's a graphic novelist that a lot of kids know. Here's the story of Rapunzel. Sweetie! What is it, dear? Is the baby coming? No, I'm hungry. And that is what I want to eat. A Rapunzel plant? But Dame Gothel would never let us pick a plant from her garden, and she is, well, I do not wish to cross one such as she. but it looks so fresh and green. Dear, I bought you cornichons, stinky cheese, olive paste, marshmallow fluff. Surely you don't have a new craving for Rapunzel, she says. That's all I want. So that night, her husband creeps over the fence, picks the Rapunzel, pluck. And just as he's going over the fence, "Trespasser!" comes a voice from out of the darkness. "How dare you set foot in my garden? Dame Gothel, I..." "And what do you have in your bag, neighbor?" "My Rapunzel." "I'm sorry, milady. My wife is very pregnant, you see. And..." "Pregnant, you say? Then I may be willing to forgive on one condition." "I shall call her Rapunzel." "No!" She takes the baby and says, "Your debt is repaid. Thank you." 16 years later, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Same thing every day. Here comes Dame Gothel, and she brushes Rapunzel's hair and gives her something to eat. "Thank you for the sandwich, Mama Gothel." "You're welcome." "What's this green stuff called?" "That's basil. Do you like it?" "Uh-huh. Where does it come from?" "Well, I have a garden full of various herbs." "You have a garden? Could I see it sometime? I'd love to see food growing." "No, you may not." "You never let me go anywhere." Then one day, bum, 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 "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." He hears the singing and he thinks, "I wonder where that voice is coming from, who it is, who's up there?" Meanwhile, in the tower, Rapunzel's reading, and she hears, this is at night, right? So before it was he was watching during the day, but now the night has come, and she hears, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel," and she's reading herself a bedtime story, and she thinks, "What? Let down your hair to me." Huh? She lets down her hair to the stranger. Maybe not a great idea, but we'll see how it goes. "And your voice, it sounded so beautiful that, is something the matter?" "It's just I've never seen another person before." "Never? What about that witch who visited you earlier?" "Witch? You've got it all wrong. Gothel is my mother. She loves me." "So why does she keep you locked away in this tower?" "Protection. The world is full of thieves and criminals, demons and monsters." "Oh, come on. Do I look like a monster to you?" "Well..." "Rapunzel! Quick, hide!" "Did I hear voices, girl?" "No, just me singing." Under the bed. "Aha! A visitor! I'll teach you not to mess with my daughter." And she shoves him out the window. "Mama! No! No!" Pushes him out. "You're the monster!" And Rapunzel leaps out the window after the man, after her visitor. We don't know he's a prince.
Yeah, but
Ah! She grabs his arm, and she gets her hair and turns it into a lasso. Flings it over. Reaches the top of a tree. And they fall gently to their landing. Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Look, she's feeling the ground for the first time. The grass, the turf.
You should have made stairs.
Get me down! I'm sorry, Mama Gothel. Look at how they really are focusing her feet on that living carpet. I don't know how. Besides, I've got the whole world to explore.
Look how tall it is.
It's very tall. Oh, there's the tower. The end.
That's small.
Why do you think they didn't make stairs in the tower?
She didn't want to escape them, but she could have hidden them.
She would have probably found them in 16 years with nowhere else to go, don't you think? Well, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully our little bit of difficulties with our technology didn't ruin the experience for people. And to those listening later on YouTube, thanks for joining us. Thanks to the Clintonville Farmers Market for sponsoring this program, and PNC for contributing funds towards it. And we'll see you next week for our final and third week of this COVIDian era Clintonville Farmers Market Kids Garden Club. Bye.